The tariff yo-yo, not a toy of choice for the European Union. Someone is playing with fire. Could it be Putin? And what's love got to do with a shove? Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett. Welcome to the Takeout. Things look and sound a bit different. If you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, that looks like a bar or a diner, and that sounded like jazz. You're right. This is the new home for politics on CBS News 24/7. But the Takeout is more than politics. It's policy, pop culture, science, law, sports, money, religion, housing, medicine. All the things that make our world tick 5 nights a week. The best CBS News political reporting can and will be found here. In fact, I will keep this chair open. If there is new reporting, the correspondent who has it will walk in and tell us. We will stop what we're doing to make room for news, always. Now, this show is the streaming evolution of the first Takeout, the weekly podcast that ran for 8 years here and on radio stations across our country. Now, this is a TV show. It's not a podcast, but we will bring the informality and approachability of that podcast to this set. We will also place our long-form interviews, of which there will be many, on the podcast feed and on our YouTube channel. This will be a place for conversation and ideas, relentlessly curious, steadfastly non-ideological. Will there be food? Yes, but not every night. These are turbulent times, and we will chronicle these times with what I hope will be a clear-eyed calm that you can rely upon. It's what I've tried to do my entire career. I've just never had a studio that looks like a bar or jazz music to help me. So let's get started. Joining me at the table, my colleagues and my friends, Ed O'Keefe and Caitlin Huey-Burns. Great to have you here on the debut episode of the new Takeout.
Congratulations. Yeah, nice to be here.
Nice digs.
Nice digs. I like the return of Distressed Wood to a studio, so it's good to see you.
Distressed Wood.
Non-DC.
Sort of works with my entire vibe, Distressed Wood. Ed, let's talk about the tariffs and the European Union.
Yeah.
On Friday, off by Sunday or Monday, the markets reacted quite positively today. There's a sense that this has been resolved, but it hasn't been resolved.
No, none of this has been resolved yet. None of these tariff deals have been resolved. All problems of the president's creation, none of them resolved yet. In this case, yes, there was a call to wrap it up already late last week. And by last night, a conversation with the head of the European Union or European Commission that basically says, let's give ourselves to July 9th to avoid this 50% tariff that I'm now threatening on the entire European continent. And sure as day, the stock market, as you said today, loved it. So the White House avoided another meltdown that would have led to a lot of nervous calls from Wall Street and business people all over the world saying, what are you doing? Please stop this, reverse it. And instead, he's giving it more time. They rightly pointed out it's trickier negotiating with a 27-nation bloc because you got to get 27 nations to agree to every little line item that there is to discuss. But that they're still talking and that he got that call from the head of the EU is reason, or the EC is reason enough to continue discussing this. And sure enough, the markets liked it.
Yeah. Caitlin, I want to play for you sound from President Trump over the weekend, not about tariffs, not about the European Commission, the European Union, but about Vladimir Putin. Let's listen.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
And then today on social media, I want the control room to bring this up. On Truth Social, the president said, and I quote, "What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. And I mean really bad, all caps. That means Trumpian emphasis. He's playing with fire." In response to that, Dmitry Medvedev, a prominent person in the Putin inner circle, said, well, I don't know what he's talking about, but we should all be afraid of World War III. This is all ratcheting up.
It is. And Republicans on Capitol Hill, at least, are ready with a bipartisan sanctions bill, essentially saying, Mr. President, you tell us when, and we will deploy this. When Trump has started
Meaning, if you really don't like it, maybe do something about it.
Let's do something about it. And now the question I have is, do you have to wait for the president? No, of course you don't. They could move forward with this bill. They are, as you've seen on tariffs, as you've seen on Russia, as you've seen on a variety of things, Republicans do give deference to the president. They trust him. They want him to work his magic as they see it, but they are, at least on this issue, saying, welcome to the party, Mr. President. This is where we've been. This is how we've felt about Putin, and we're ready to issue these sanctions. So the question is, when will they do it?
Ed?
80 senators have agreed to do something. I can't remember the last time 80 senators agreed to do anything except maybe confirm one or two non-controversial nominees.
And even that.
And even that, it's been hard to get.
Or name a post office.
Right. 80. Okay? They're ready to go. Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal, green room gadflies they are, but they were able to pull together all of their colleagues to get this. It's ready to go. House would pass something too. And it's interesting that they're giving him as much deference as they are. And yet part of it is because they're waiting for the budget negotiations as well, and they want to. And the president hopes somehow Putin wakes up at some point and decides to agree to a ceasefire.
And to your point, Ed, in the Wall Street Journal today, Lindsey Graham writes that he has 82 senators now on board, and these are sanctions designed to dramatically increase tariffs on Russian energy sales. And he writes in the Wall Street Journal, the consequences of its, meaning Russia's, barbaric invasion must be made real to those that prop it up. If China or India stopped buying cheap oil, Mr. Putin's war machine would grind to a halt, putting all the blame where it belongs, at least in terms of who started this conflict, Putin and Russia, and how it is funded or financed in large part energy sales. Caitlin?
And if you listen to the conversation that the administration has been having over the past several months, they have been very reluctant to say Putin started this. And the language has changed over the past several weeks. Republicans, at least on Capitol Hill, have already been there. They already say, when you ask them about how the president is approaching this, they already say, well, Putin's a thug. We need to address him. He's not he's a bad guy, right? So this is an instance where they've already been here. They just need some okay from the president politically to say this is what we want to do. And it's complicated, but it's also pretty fundamental, right? Sanctions have been a operating procedure of foreign policy
Sanctions
for a while.
or asset seizures. Either way, for the president, it seems like he's on the cusp of frustration turning into something.
Yeah, but we've been asking for weeks about this bill, when it only had 60 sponsors, when it had 70, when it had nearly 80. Now that it has 82, White House never gives an answer on, does he support it? Would he be okay with them passing it? Which shows you that they know it's there, it's leverage, it's maybe a last resort.
It's only leverage if you use it. Ed O'Keefe, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thanks so much. You'll be back. One of the things, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do on our show here at the Takeout is to sort of treat the studio as if it were two distinct rooms. Family table, conversation corner. So here at the corner, I want to invite our guest, Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley. Mr. Chairman, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Please sit down. Thanks for joining me. So for all you news hounds there, I'll get to the news in a second, but I want to ask the chairman something about his early life. As I understand it, you have master's degrees in religion and theology. What did those studies tell you, if anything, about your life in politics and how to view politics?
Well, I think the whole key is to help people. I think the whole key is what are we doing to make society better? What are we doing to make everything better? And it's really neat to understand a lot of what's going on in church on any given Sunday. But it's also neat to come at politics from a perspective of we need to do better. We need society to do better. How do we help?
How does forgiveness factor into current politics?
Well, I think it's absolutely essential. None of us are perfect.
Are we forgiving, though, in our political dialogue?
Well, I think that ultimately we get there, right? And I think the fact is that, right now, our politics is all about making America better and all about making the world better.
Mm-hmm. How would you grade President Trump's rhetoric on the forgiveness scale?
Look, I think what President Trump is doing is fighting every single day for every single family and every single community all across America. He has put together an America First agenda, which is resonating broadly with the American people. That's really where we want to come from. There's a reason that he did better among blacks, among Hispanics, among Asian Americans, among young voters and among women voters than Republican candidates have done in many, many years, because he has put together an agenda to help every single family and every single community.
We're going to get to those demographics in our conversation, I promise you. I was struck when the president sat down with the Atlantic magazine late in April. He said, I run the country and the world. Does he run the world?
No, but I think we have an opportunity to be the leader of the free world. I think we have an opportunity to be a leader for the entire world. Look, America is the shining light on the hill. And we are a country that is always going to be a leader for freedom, and we're going to be advancing the human cause. That's the role that America has. It's a very unique place in the world.
And when he says, I run the world, and you look at the situation in Ukraine and his evident frustration, what appears to be building with Vladimir Putin, how does that factor for you?
Well, President Trump wants peace. You know, he made it very clear throughout the course of the campaign. He wants to bring peace.
And achieving it, two different things.
It is. And certainly right now what we're doing is we're going through paces with Russia, with Ukraine, trying to get them to the same table and trying to figure out a way that he can end this bloodshed. You know, we're seeing 5,000 dead a week. That's too many. People have been killed for the last 3 years, and he wants to make sure that we get to a place where we're going to have an enduring peace.
Is it time to follow Lindsey Graham's lead and level sanctions against Russia?
Look, I think he's going to take a look at it. He's already said that he's going to take a look at it.
I mean, a serious look at it.
That's exactly what he just said over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about over the weekend, Rand Paul said this weekend that the spending cuts in the House-passed economic bill are wimpy. Senator Ron Johnson said President Trump is unserious currently about spending cuts and thinks he can stop the entire process. How do you evaluate those remarks?
Look, the American people want to see this bill. 80% of the American people support this bill, support the tax cuts that are in it. And so, you know, all of it. That's what we're seeing right now, that they want
your
those
internal polling says 80% of the American people support this
public
bill.
Polling, who 80% of the people,
not just the tax cuts,
78% of Democrats and 81%
the Medicaid
of
cuts,
independents want to see the tax cuts that are going to be put into this bill. It's absolutely essential. We get it. We have an inflection point bill here. We're either going to have the largest tax hike in American history or the largest tax cuts in American history. Right now, the Republican Party, with two exceptions in the House, supports the largest tax cuts in history. The Democratic Party, with zero exceptions in the House, voted for the largest tax hikes in American history. And every single Democrat in the Senate has said they're going to vote against this bill.
How about Ron Johnson and Rand Paul and their current criticisms?
They are negotiating right now. Those criticisms are being taken into consideration.
Do you take them seriously?
Yes, absolutely. I think the fact is that the president has said there are going to be changes that are going to be made in the Senate, and that's okay. This is a bill. This is a process. Like we're watching the old Saturday morning cartoon, I'm Just a Bill, playing out in real time, right? And so there is going to be give and take. There's a lot of process to go through with it. But the Republican Party wants to see this bill done because it embodies President Trump's agenda. This is the America First agenda. This is all about making sure that we have tax cuts in a growing economy, that we have security at the southern border, that we have a stronger military. These are all things that the American people broadly support.
All Schoolhouse Rock references are welcome here at the Takeout, Mr. Chairman. We're going to take a quick break. My conversation with RNC Chairman Michael Whatley will continue when we come back. Coming up on the Takeout, Macron and Brigitte. It's always been complicated. Now a viral clip. First feisty, then frosty. The coexistence question, humans and artificial intelligence. What do we fear? What should we anticipate? My conversation with someone who advises CEOs on how to plan for the future. And this might surprise you, but Washington has never been home for me. Home is San Diego. A look at where, for me, all things began. That and much more next on the Takeout. Welcome back to the Takeout. Continuing our conversation with RNC Chairman Michael Whatley. Mr. Chairman, are there any risks for Republicans not passing the Trump economic bill?
Well, I think it's absolutely a critical component of the economic agenda that President Trump is pushing, and obviously the economy in the number one issue in the 24 election cycle. It'll be the number one issue in the 26 election cycle. So we need to make sure that we have the economy roaring, and that's exactly what it's going to plan. The tax provisions in this bill are absolutely essential. We do not want to see the largest tax hike in American history go into effect. What we want to do is make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We want to see no tax on overtime, no tax on,
tips.
Tips. Thank you. And, look, it's really important for us as an economy.
In that sense, when things were a little dicey on the House side, President Trump used the word betrayal if you vote against this. Are you comfortable with that word? He also suggested Republicans who don't support it will be primaried. Are you comfortable with betrayal and primaries?
Well, what I think
as an enforcement mechanism.
Look, this is an American agenda. It's not just President Trump's agenda. It's not just the Republican Party agenda. The American people support this agenda. They want tax cuts. They want a restored economy. They want the southern border to be strong. They want our military and our presence around the world to be strong. So it is something that right now we need every Republican to come into and every Republican to support.
And if they don't, they're betraying the president?
Well, look, I think that it's not just the president right now. This is about the American people. There's a reason that 80% of the American people support these provisions, support this tax bill, and want to see this get to the president's desk.
You're comfortable with betrayal?
I didn't say I'm comfortable with betrayal. What I said was that every Republican needs to understand that this is an American agenda that is going to be very popular in their state. It's going to be very popular in their districts.
How about when the president briefly suggested he was open to raising taxes on those who make more than $2.5 million a year, or removing the loophole for carried interest, which allows hedge fund managers to pay lower taxes than most wage earners in our country? Are you comfortable with those ideas?
Look, what I will say is this. The Congress is going to enact these provisions. They're going to go through the process of making sausage. We're all watching it in real time right now to see what this bill is going to come out to. We need to have a bill that's going to extend the Trump tax cuts. We need no tax on Social Security. We need no tax on overtime. We need no tax on tips. It's going to take a process of multiple bills before we can probably get there. But that is an agenda that the president ran on, that the Congress got their majority on, and the Senate got their majority on. That's where we're going to end up.
Do you think those things would add populist appeal to the bill, raising taxes on the super wealthy?
This bill right now has tremendous populist appeal. That's why it has 80% support. And so I think that what we need to do is continue to focus on the top lines. And to me, the top line is that every single Democrat in the House voted for the largest tax hike in American history on everybody, on the lower class, the middle class, and the rich. The fact that every senator on the Democratic Party has said that they're going to vote against this bill, that is really, truly going against the will of the American people.
They would argue that they're willing to approve the tax cuts, just not they just want to raise taxes on the wealthy.
But what they have said across the board is they are going to vote against this bill.
I promised you a demographic question. I want to read something to you from one of your favorite newspapers, the New York Times. This weekend it wrote about what are called triple trending counties, counties that have gone in one direction 3 times in a row in the last 3 elections. Quote, 435 counties voted more Democratic in 2024 than did so in 2012, by an average improved margin of 8.8 percentage points. And 2,678 counties became more Republican, by an average of 13.3 percentage points. That's 6 times as many counties moving toward the GOP than toward the Democratic Party, and by a substantially wider margin. First, how did that happen? Second, is it permanent?
I don't think it's permanent. I think that it's very important to understand how it happened, which is that Donald Trump ran on an agenda that was the American agenda. This was, how do you restore the economy? How do you restore the southern border? How do you restore American strength around the world? That's an agenda that the American people wanted to see. As long as Republicans understand their voters and the issues that they care about and put solutions on the table, Republicans will be successful. But they have to continue to do that. Donald Trump went into every community. He went to downtown Milwaukee, downtown Detroit, downtown Philadelphia. He went into the Bronx. He went into downtown Atlanta. And he talked to every single family in every single community about the issues that they cared about. And people saw it. People may not have liked Donald Trump as much as they like other candidates, but they know that he brings results. And that is really where the growth came from.
Elon Musk wrote today that it's time for him to go back 24/7 to his 3 main companies. Does that mean Doge is over? And does that mean his experiment here in Washington ended without much happening?
Not at all. Doge is absolutely not over. Russ Vought is going to be taking it over. It's extraordinarily...
the budget director.
Yes, and it is absolutely critical that this is a concept that moves forward. When we talk about fighting waste, fraud, and abuse, the president is very serious about fighting waste, fraud, and abuse, and we need to root it out everywhere that we possibly can. We're going to see what, the process as we go through budget and appropriations is going to look like to be able to eliminate that out there. But the American people, 75% support eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. This program was absolutely essential. We owe Elon Musk a debt of gratitude for kicking this off and launching it the way that he has.
It hasn't blown up in his face or Tesla's face?
Look, I mean, he didn't do this because of what it was going to do in terms of the stock value for his company, but he needs to get back and he needs to run it. The fact is right now that the American economy and American people are going to be better off for the efforts that he made.
You're from North Carolina. How is Western North Carolina? Parts, as I understand it, I talked to people there, still recovering from Helene. Arkansas, Missouri have recently been hit. How concerned are you about a FEMA that is pulled back to a smaller core and doesn't consider itself the lead disaster response agency in our country?
Well, look, we are going to have a federal emergency response. There is always going to need to be a federal emergency response. But the fact is, in Hurricane Helene, North Carolina got absolutely drilled. 73,000 homes were damaged, 45,000 small businesses were damaged, and the response from FEMA was not what it needed to be. Right? President Trump feels very strongly that the recovery efforts need to be led by the states, and we want to make sure that we have programs in place that are going to empower the states.
State budgets will have room for that?
There's always going to be a dual role for the federal government and the state government, but the states need to be able to step up and make sure that they're helping with recovery. But the federal government will play an important role, no question about it.
RNC Chairman Michael Wiley, it's been a pleasure.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Please come back.
Yes, sir, we will.
Stay with us. You're watching, and I hope enjoying The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Here is a look at some of the other stories we're watching this evening. Missouri voters will get to decide again on abortion issues. In 2024, you might recall voters approved a ballot measure to enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution, doing so by a margin of 3 percentage points. Now, Republican lawmakers are again putting an abortion ban referendum to the voters. As I just mentioned with the RNC Chairman Michael Wiley, Elon Musk bowing out at Doge and returning to his companies. He's pledged to focus on them, quote, 24/7. Musk is expected to speak at the SpaceX facility in Texas tonight after the Starship Flight 9 launch. And I am sure you have seen this video. And if you haven't seen this video, your phone must have been off this holiday weekend. France's president pushed in the face by his wife as the couple landed in Vietnam. Emmanuel Macron says the shove was just a joke and not a domestic dispute. Ed O'Keefe, Caitlin Huey-Burns are back with me, plus my colleagues Jan Crawford and Camilo Montoya Galvez. I mentioned as we open the show there will sometimes be food. So I think it's appropriate, if we're going to talk about Emmanuel Macron, to have at the family table.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Well done.
Macaron. So, Ed O'Keefe, I know you are chomping at the bit to get involved in this conversation.
Well, I'll take
carry
the
on.
green one. But see, I saw that, and you're married?
Yes, twice.
You're married?
But who's counting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm married.
No shoving was involved.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And not in mine either. Not in mine either. But I saw that and I thought, like, in some way, every husband and wife has been there.
Oh, no.
But in some kind of an argument where...
Jan, please.
Okay, Ed, what's going on?
I can't say I've never been shoved like that, but I'm sure she's wanted
Not yet.
And the other thing is, like, we've all been around political couples. You know that the staff shields this stuff from reporters as much as possible.
That's why we're talking about it, because it wasn't shielded. It was a moment where Macron instantly recognizes that what's just happened has been captured, and he has got to find a way visually to immediately begin to repair the damage.
It was such a moment of a politician, right?
Yeah, like, I won't be the only one eating.
Oh, no, I'm on... immediate. I mean, he was very talented in that regard to immediately flip over and say, "Oh wait, okay."
Almost as if they don't have kids, but it was almost as if like the kids had caught a disagreement between mom. Again, my marriage is in great shape. This has never happened to me. But I just saw it and I thought, oh.
Jan, your perspective, please.
No, I mean, I think it was quite unusual behavior. As someone who has been married and now divorced, sadly, twice, that would never have happened. And obviously, my marriage didn't work. So, but shoving, I mean, in the face, and I agree with Caitlin, I mean, the recovery was impressive. That was the most impressive.
Except the part where they go down the stairs and he has his arm out, and she is looking at that arm as if it belongs to some sort of monster.
Well,
next to her.
okay, I think that anyone that's been...
Yeah, let's run.
I can relate to that.
We should be looping this video, folks. We should just be looping this 20 seconds.
No, I mean, we can relate to, like, okay, get away from me. I just really can't deal with you right now. That's very different than a hand in the face in front of, you know, other people that were around.
I want to ask you about Harvard.
Okay.
And the president, and what seems to be not only a confrontation over money, but a confrontation over the limits, such as they are, of presidential power, trying to punish Harvard.
Yeah, I mean, Harvard is being retaliated against because they're fighting. They didn't capitulate to his demands to change their curriculum.
Filed a lawsuit.
That's right. And so, I mean, I think the latest moves, especially saying that you can enroll international students, 27% of their student body.
And just as a reminder, international students.
27.
Yes.
Columbia is almost 50.
Pay the highest rate of tuition, which is why it is meaningful to every institution, private or public.
But, I mean, they've sued, and I think that they've clearly got a retaliation claim.
Harvard does.
Absolutely. It's
selective
First Amendment. Yeah, I mean, they're not doing this against any other school. And obviously, Harvard has serious problems that they have failed to address, including, you know, not coming to grips with the rampant anti-Semitism that has threatened Jewish students on that campus as at other campuses. So clearly, they have work to do. But this move by Trump to try to punish them in any number of ways, I think is they're going to win that lawsuit.
Let me get to Camilo real quick. Camilo, very quickly, because I know I want to get to your other reporting in the immigration space, but this interview process that the Trump administration announced today, suspending interviews for future prospective
international students. Yes. That's right. The State Department announced that they will be halting for the time being interviews, in-person interviews for the international students who are looking to come here to the U.S. to study. So this will affect prospective students who want to study here in American colleges. And this is being justified by the administration on the grounds that they need to enhance and take a more aggressive approach towards screening the social media accounts of students. And this is part of an immigration crackdown that has affected the entire sprawling immigration system. The administration is looking for different reasons to deny entry to more foreigners into the country, and this is one of those efforts.
And Camilo, you also have new reporting on efforts undertaken by the Trump administration to go to courts where undocumented persons are appearing as requested for a hearing, and then what happens?
This is the latest escalation in the administration's efforts to carry out what the president has said will be the largest deportation operation in American history. ICE is conducting an operation that is still ongoing, targeting migrants who are attending their immigration court hearings. ICE prosecutors across the country are telling immigration judges, you should dismiss the cases of certain migrants just so our agents outside of these courthouses can arrest them and place them in a more fast-tracked deportation process that bypasses the immigration court system entirely. So this allows the administration to deport these people without the due process protections that are guaranteed in immigration court. And it's affecting cities across the country, including Miami, San Francisco, New York, D.C. And lawyers are having a tough time telling their clients what to do in this case because in some ways it is a catch-22. If you go to court, there's a possibility you could face arrest, and if you don't go to court, you could be ordered deported by an immigration judge because missing a hearing is grounds for deportation.
I don't keep any sense at the White House that there is any potential political blowback from this maximalist application of available immigration laws.
I answer that, but I reserve the right to ask a question.
Oh, yeah, please, go right ahead.
So far...
But you don't get another microphone.
No, we've moved on from the French.
Good.
In so many ways. But those are good, and you should all be eating them. So far, no. Right. Because if you continue to look at public opinion on the president, what's the one issue that he remains strongest on?
Buoy him.
Border security, immigration. Right. And even people who don't like him will stop and tell you. But I do like the fact that he has closed the borders and that he's trying to clean up a chronic problem that has crossed presidencies. I just want to walk back to Harvard, though, real quick, because I can hear friends and family asking this question specific to Harvard. How many justices graduated from Harvard in one way or another? Not to put you on the spot.
I mean, I can't come off the top of my head.
Would they have grounds? Would they have grounds to recuse themselves?
More than two, I'm going to guess.
Would they have grounds to recuse themselves?
I'll take the over on 2.
Well, that's a really interesting question because certainly in the affirmative action case, we saw Justice recuse herself. So, potentially, but I don't think so. I don't think so.
That's just
because otherwise, I don't know. I'm going to say no on that. But again, the justices, we don't know why they recuse themselves in cases. We can assume things. They don't tell us why they're recusing. That's up to them. And it's a strong policy at the court not to recuse unless it's absolutely...
Unless there's really no other choice.
Right, because look what happens.
Right.
You get 4-4 ties like we got in that major religion case last week.
Caitlin?
Well, going back to the immigration component, I think something that is bolstering the president in some ways is the fact that Democrats have kind of struggled with how to respond, right? I mean, Democrats have been going down to El Salvador. Another one, a Maryland congressman just today went down there. And it's very difficult to explain to people due process for those who are not here legally, right? It's a very difficult message to portray for people to understand. So that's what Trump has always been good at, is just the basic messaging around this issue that gets people to respond. So even if he's going overboard, the pushback is lacking.
Before we go, I want to ask your opinion about, or your sense, not your opinion, your sense of Missouri putting the abortion issue back on the ballot.
I mean, this is so fascinating.
It was
because
settled. Well, not settled, but there was a vote. It was statewide.
6 months ago, Missouri was one of 6-7 states that had a referendum on the ballot codifying abortion rights into their state constitution. Then however months later, the state Republicans have now put a referendum up, or will, likely in the next midterm, but could be sooner, to essentially reverse that.
So you got it wrong.
To tell voters. So, and you mentioned this 3-point difference in the, so it'd be interesting to see who shows out for that.
Ed O'Keefe, Caitlin Huey Burns, Jan Crawford, Camila Montoya Galvez, and our macarons. Thank you very much. Yeah, predicting the future. Predicting the future. How will artificial intelligence change how we live and work? And should we be fearful of this technological super advancement? That's next right here on The Takeout. A couple of weeks ago, I traveled to my hometown of San Diego. More on that in a minute. And I sat down with someone with an interesting job title, futurist. That's someone who is tasked with helping leaders adapt to new technology and ways of working. Here's my conversation with Melanie Subin, head of Future Today Strategy Group. Here's a question I get a lot. I'm fearful of the future. Should I be?
My favorite answer to that is that the future doesn't exist yet, so there's nothing to be afraid of. A lot of the work that we do in strategic foresight is helping companies and organizations, or people, the leaders of those organizations, to create the future that they want. So I think there's a lot of fear about the future right now, but the good news is we can still make it whatever we want to make it.
People say to me, I'm afraid of artificial intelligence. It's going to take my job. It's going to do things for my life that will maybe simplify it, but take the human component out. They're afraid of both things. How would you address those two fears?
Artificial intelligence got the worst marketing campaign. I think if we had called it something other than artificial intelligence, we might feel a lot differently about it. The title artificial intelligence makes it feel like it's replacing humans. In reality, it's just using all that big data that we were collecting for the last 10 or 20 years. So I think that it is going to change jobs. It's going to replace tasks. It's going to change the nature of work. But as with the Industrial Revolution, as with so many other technological advancements that we've seen over the past 100 years, there will still be a role for people. That role just might change.
What's the biggest upside of artificial intelligence?
It can do away with a lot of the really annoying, sort of tedious tasks that take place in work. When automation was a big topic of conversation maybe 10 years ago, I came from the insurance industry, and we said that it would do away with the dull, dirty, and dangerous aspects of work. Specifically for automation, it's doing away with the dirty and the dangerous. I think AI is doing away with the dull. So it's automating invoicing, it's automating follow-up emails. It's really good at doing things like that, but we still need to have a human in the loop to make sure that if it's making decisions, that it's making good decisions or right decisions. It still only has this amount of data. It doesn't have that empathy and context and human perspective yet.
Is the fear about losing jobs misplaced?
I don't think it is. There are still jobs that are being lost. There are companies that are conducting layoffs. It would be silly to act like those aren't happening. I think
because of AI.
I think it is happening because of AI. So specifically HR roles, there were some really large tech companies that either did away with HR roles or decided not to fill them over the course of the next few years. One in particular said 9,000 jobs were going to be replaced by AI, and it boasted about that. So it's true that jobs are being done away with. The real opportunity that we have is to create skills pathways, to create upskilling opportunities. We're still approaching education using old models of thinking, using four-year models of thinking. Those university degrees could still be valuable, but we also need to create faster pathways for people to build skills so that they can apply to new types of jobs or jobs where maybe they're working with and interfacing with AI.
Dig into that for me a bit. What should the future of education look like, K through 12 and afterwards?
This is a really topic close to my heart. Education has to be applicable to where we're going, not where we're coming from. So right now, a lot of the topics that are being taught are still focused on where we've come from. History is still important. Math foundations are still important. But for example, coding or even artificial intelligence, the schools that are teaching them are most often still teaching based on maybe the original iteration of ChatGPT that came out. Education needs to be focused on where we're going, what skills will be necessary. And in order to do that, educators have to think about how industries are going to evolve, how public policy will need to evolve, how society will need to evolve in order to prepare those students for the world that they're going to step into, not the world that existed 10 years ago.
What would you tell someone, or what would you advise someone who takes this approach to artificial intelligence? I don't want to see it. I don't want to touch it.
That approach is so common for AI and every other big, scary topic. I was sitting with a group of leaders the other day. We were talking about big macroeconomic forces that would impact their company, and they said, well, we really don't know what's going to happen over the next 4 years. So I think we should just sit tight and not make any big decisions for the next 4 years and sort of wait and to see what happens. And uncertainty is not the time to freeze. Uncertainty is the time to make a plan. If we had a child who said they were not going to make any decisions for 4 years, we would encourage them to think about possible futures and where they want to go. Leaders are often really focused on the near term for good reason. They have to think about shareholder returns. They have to think about earnings. And it's a natural sort of space to be in, to think only about the near term. When we do that, though, it leads us to a destination that maybe we weren't intending. It brings us somewhere, but not necessarily where we wanted to go. And so what I often encourage leaders to do is to set aside a finite period of time. Maybe you can't think about the future every single day, but can you take 1 day a month? Can you take 1 day a quarter to really think about where you want to go and then back into, okay, how are we going to deal with these external forces today to make sure that they don't derail us?
Help me out with this. 10 years from now, what would you imagine or suggest that people are not doing and are not comfortable with now that they will be doing and be very comfortable with?
AI decision making. So artificial intelligence right now is kind of in your face. You know most of the time when you're using it. You're going onto a chatbot, you're using something where it says this is powered by AI. But artificial intelligence, as it becomes more sophisticated, is also going to become more invisible. And so people will be using artificial intelligence.
More subtle and
more subtle,
widely distributed.
more ingrained in the applications that they're using, more ingrained in purchase decisions, more ingrained in decisions about where to live or the food that you buy for your family. Artificial intelligence can help learn patterns and habits and make really personalized recommendations. That's already been in play from some of the larger tech companies for a number of years, but to be honest, those recommendations are still not very good.
Does it take randomness out of life and become a tool of conformity?
You know, I think it could if humans weren't human. I think humans will still always be a little bit random. I think humans will still always be inspired by the piece of artwork that they walked by or a conversation they had in line to get a cup of coffee. So I think it could, that's a threat, but I think humans will always be human, and that will always prevent AI from fully replicating our human experience.
That beloved hometown I've mentioned, I will give you a short but cinematically textured tour next here on The Takeout. Here is what you and I know. We all start somewhere, and not all of it makes sense in the beginning. So, slightly tongue-in-cheek, this is where I began.
There was a time before the internet, when the printed word reigned supreme. And in San Diego, where, yes, Ron Burgundy ruled the airwaves, there grew up a man with journalistic dreams of his own. His name was Major Garrett. Yes, Major, if you can believe it. He wore glasses from an early age and lots of polyester. While his friends went surfing, he played ice hockey. Ice hockey in San Diego. In other words, Major Garrett was not Ron Burgundy, or at least not yet. But they did share some things in common. Polyester, and a love of their fair city.
When I think about what I love most about San Diego, of course, I think about where it all began, this house. Of course, everything looks different, but my dreams, all of them, of being a journalist, especially one in Washington, began right here. This is my elementary school. And you know that stuff about journalists needing tough skin? Well, it's true. When I arrived here, I looked like this. Funny name Major, glasses. That's where the teasing and the tough skin began. When it came to baseball, my enthusiasm was much more noticeable than my skills, but I did hit one over the fence home run, one, and I hit it from this spot to dead center. I grew up in San Diego, but I did not surf, but I shopped at a place called Claremont Surf Shop, where I got lots of gear that was surfer adjacent. You know we love to eat at the Takeout. San Diego has so many great Mexican restaurants, taco shops, but for me, the absolute best is El Indio. I came here all the time as a kid for two things, taquitos and tortilla chips. So this is just a sliver of San Diego and the experiences I had growing up here. Great place to grow up, fundamental to who I became. And I just have one last thing to say. You stay classy. No, that's somebody else's line.
You stay classy, Major Garrett.
My thanks to the voice of Anchorman, Bill Curtis, an accomplished journalist in his own right. Please look it up. Hope you enjoyed our conversation with RNC Chairman Michael Whatley. Tomorrow, DNC Chairman Ken Martin. Also tomorrow, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on the coming House and Senate Republican budget jousting and how Trump will referee it all. Okay, the first show is in the books. You know, we're still fine-tuning things here, including how you can keep in touch with us. We want to know how we're doing, and importantly, we want to know what you're curious about. The Takeout isn't mine. It's yours. The Daily Report is next on CBS News 24/7.